Water. No, no. Atambasha.
Are you fine? Are you done? Which one?
Muna kyau bet. Sorry, Jacaranda.
Jacaranda.
Steve, we need to lower it because it's blocking the mayor's face. Sure. That's how it works. Hero, ang kaya kita chicha. Kamu petinya karatu. So, okay, sure.
Please change the mic for me. Which one?
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah,
Let's
Isha
put this
paket.
one. I want that one.
Yeah, yeah, Isha. Isha put that. Can you pick up the...
It's fine.
It's interesting, I'm watching live. So first.
I wish you were here.
I agree. Ooh,
Here's the briefing. Good luck, colleagues. I think you'll do well.
yeah.
Russia with love.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, colleagues from the media. Thank you so much for coming to this media briefing. I know I issued the media advisory a bit late, but thank you for making time. Good afternoon, Executive Mayor. Good afternoon to the CEO of Joburg Water, Gugu Pakati. Good afternoon to Aserius Tavaria, who's the GM for Finance and Project Manager Turnaround Strategy here at Joburg Water. The Chief of Staff from the Mayor's Office, Mr. Chris Bondo. Colleagues from MMC Sikwaela's office, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for this briefing. We thought it's important to have this briefing because we want to put the issue of the alleged 4 billion amount that the media have been saying it's missing from the Joburg Water account. And we also wanted to give the media, 2 weeks ago, if not 3, the Joburg Water colleagues and the mayor presented to the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation about the turnaround strategy for Joburg Water. So we thought it's crucial that we have the media and we present to them as well. We're also going to give you an update on how, sort of like break down how the sweeping account works, because I see a lot of people have different explanation of how the sweeping account works. So we thought it's important that we have this briefing and we bring someone from the City Group Treasury to break it down and explain how the sweeping account works. And just to assure the residents of Johannesburg that there's no 4 billion that went missing and there's no 4 billion that is going to get missing. So without wasting any further time, Executive Mayor.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. The summary has been indicated why we've called you here today, and in the main, is some of the issues that would have been raised by the Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation around the water business and the challenges in the business. So colleagues, you are all welcome. And once again, good afternoon to our residents of Johannesburg, and thank you for joining us as we share progress on the Johannesburg Water Turnaround Strategy, a key part of our broader presidential Joburg water governance interventions. So this program is about getting the basics right, strengthening the governance, stabilizing water supply, and restoring confidence in the city's ability to deliver reliable water services. On governance and financial reform, one of the most significant developments is the ring-fencing of Johannesburg Water as a trading entity. This reform is supported by the Presidency and National Treasury, and it will ensure greater accountability and efficiency in how we manage our water resources and finances, especially of entities like Joburg Water. So from the 1st of July 2025, we started a process where Joburg Water officially took over what we call revenue and billing function from the city. And I'm pleased to indicate that we have seen at least some significant improvement since they've taken over the billing and revenue function with meter reading, which has now increased, a slight increase to about 92% from 91%. So it's really a 1 percentage point increase in August from July, and hopefully by the end of the year would have increased to about 95%. So we're seeing an improvement in that regard. And the whole area is to ensure that we improve customer experience, and we are also establishing a new customer management section to handle all billing queries so that we can respond to the queries within a 30-day period. So we are now establishing that section within Joburg Water. You'd know that all these functions were all residing at the Revenue Department, but with the changes that we're doing, we're now taking billing straight to entities so that they can manage it and manage it better. On water conservation and water demand management, we are seeing an encouraging results from our water demand initiatives. You'd know that we had put initiatives, public awareness, illegal connection, and all those issues. And the city's average daily demand has dropped from 1,792 megaliters per day to 1,702 megaliters per day. And that's a reduction of at least 90 megaliters every day. And this is thanks to the interventions on leak detection, pressure management, and community awareness programs. We have installed at least 225 noise lockers to detect leaks automatically and deployed about 51 smart pressure controllers to regulate nighttime flow and reduce wastage. We have also ensured that there's enforcement, and we are continuing with enforcement. We have currently disconnected illegal connections in at least 3 informal settlements, and further actions are planned in collaboration with law enforcement agencies. And so this will also help us to deal with water demand by ensuring that we can disconnect those that are connected illegally. On infrastructure rehabilitation, on the infrastructure front, we are prioritizing the rehabilitation of critical reservoirs and wastewater treatment plants. Construction is underway, as you know, at Hestil 2 in Midrand, in the Dunkeld Reservoir, and the Ayrton are expected to start next month. So what we have done as part of our program is to deal with those reservoir issues as we have indicated before, and at the same time our wastewater treatment plants, Oliphant's Flay and Bushkuppies, have been completed and major upgrades, while hot copies is now at 95% completion. These projects improve our ability to store, treat, and distribute water more efficiently across Johannesburg. So what are the medium-term priorities that we are putting in place? And over the next financial year, we'll focus on rolling out phase 2 of the reservoir rehabilitation program, covering in the main Uvale, Jabulani, Power Park, Ennerdale, and Alexander Park. So it's important for us to deal with these reservoirs. We are replacing 85 kilometers of aging water pipes and 18 kilometers of sewer lines. This is across the city, and we'll manage them to, in a sense that would identify where the pressure points are as we do the pipe replacement. Procuring new jetting trucks to improve turnaround time for sewer blockages from 48 to 24 hours. And I think what we're trying to do there is to deal with our turnaround time in terms of responding to water, to burst pipes. And then of course our plan into the future, we are also planning long-term investments to build resilience. And this will include constructing new water towers and reservoirs in key growth areas like Blue Hills, Limbro Park, and Bryanston. Advancing affluent reuse and groundwater projects to diversify Joburg's water sources, with borehole drilling already underway in partnership with Vets Enterprises. You'd know that in the area of Westbury and Coronation, we've already partnered with Vets and we have drilled boreholes in at least 4 schools. So that program is ongoing. And these projects are about future proofing the city, ensuring that we have sustainable water supply even as our population grows. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, residents of the city, the progress we are reporting today is a result of teamwork across all spheres of government, with Joburg Water, the Presidency, National Treasury, and of course, Rand Water. We still have challenges, but we are confronting them with agency, transparency, and accountability. Our goal remains clear, is to deliver reliable water services, protect this precious resource, and rebuild public trust. Now, these are the issues that we are giving to you, and we'll also deal with the sweeping account. Our finance people will take us through so that we understand exactly what does a sweeping account means and what is an impact of a sweeping account towards the overall financial management of the city. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so far, and we can then take over and give to our finance people. Joburg Water. Can I ask him to come and sit here whilst you can, it's better if you, or you're gonna need your laptop.
Let's see if it comes.
But you need this more.
Let's see.
Let me drive it. I'll drive it.
You can put it somewhere here.
Okay, so I'll put me.
Okay, thanks everyone, and thanks EM. Good afternoon. Afternoon EM executives, councillors, the media, and I think importantly the residents. So the briefing today was to give an update to the team around how we are structuring the turnaround of the organisation, as well as then progress related thereto in terms of some of the intervention programs. I think the Mayor's stolen a lot of my thunder in terms of the presentation that will come hereafter, but I'll try not to repeat some of the items just for the sake of time. So if we move in terms of how we are functioning as Joburg Water on the turnaround strategy. The turnaround strategy was developed several years ago, and it was as a result of intensive engagements that we've had with a number of stakeholders. What we've identified is that the organization was on a deeply unsustainable trajectory from a financial perspective, and we were needing to reverse the decline that we've seen for over a decade. So the strategy itself outlines 5 strategic shifts. I'll get into that into some detail. And the implementation thereof requires certain key decisions to be made by the city, which has already taken place in certain instances, which I'll highlight through the progress. The actual strategy, one must reflect on it and understand that it needs to be undertaken in conjunction with an overall city financial turnaround, which is currently underway. So if we look the background to some of the challenges that we experienced, issues around investment in the organization, that there's been long-term underinvestment in terms of capital replacement, as well as certain operating maintenance costs that needed to be undertaken. There was a serious decline in cash that we were picking up on, as well as then the split in the customer value chain that the Mayor touched on. There was equally challenges around how our governance was actually needing to be managed, as well as then the financial relationship between the entity as well as the city of Joburg. So if we look, we started this journey already in August 2023, and we started with engagements with our board on the matter, and we then met with the Deputy Ministers of Finance and the then Executive Mayor and MMC for Finance within the city. So we've had extensive engagement subsequent to that with the Group CFO, with the Budget and Treasury Office at the city of Joburg, and we've had detailed engagements then insofar as how we unpack the revenue value chain that the EM highlighted in terms of the takeover that we've conducted. We received then formal responses in terms of how we intend to move forward in terms of the roadmap. We've had entity optimization workshops that we conducted between the city as well as the entity and its key stakeholders. Ultimately, it resulted in an approval of the turnaround strategy coming through to Council on the 16th of July 2024. So what that turnaround strategy is underpinned with is basically 5 strategic shifts. Now, the first strategic shift talks to realignment of the customer and revenue value chain, and I'll get into some detail as we move through. We then talk about restructuring the financial relationship with the city. We then talk about the governance in terms of improvement, and then looking to ramp up investment in our capital replacement and new assets that we're putting on the ground, as well as then creating the capability within the organization itself to actually deliver on the turnaround. So those were the 5 key pillars that we have the strategy underpinned on. And if we look, the strategy, if we delve deeper around the revenue and customer value chain, what it entailed was essentially Joburg Water taking over the billing function from the city of Joburg, as well as then equally trying to take over collections so that we could actually control that entire activity from a single point of management accountability. We then also looked at trying to restructure the financial relationship with the city so that we get a fair share of the equitable share that gets directed through National Treasury, and also entering into multi-year financial agreements and entering into a transparent nature of that agreement with the city so that we understand how the flows are then quantified between the 2 entities. Equally, we were looking then to increase our investment program and look at alternative funding, specifically PPPs or profit-based contracts or performance-based contracts. So we were looking to partner with external stakeholders in terms of trying to assist in delivery of the investment capability that we have. We spoke about the corporate governance and the need to reset that corporate governance. We spoke about ramping up investment from the 1 billion that we were receiving to quickly accelerate to 2 and then 3 billion in the outer years that we required in terms of catering for the backlog of 32 billion in our infrastructure that we were requiring at the time. We also then need to establish the required management and technical capacity to deliver on this intervention plan. So those were the 5 strategic shifts. Now, coupled with those strategic shifts, we had a National Treasury Metro Trading Service reform that was launched. And what that expected was a turnaround strategy which we had already developed, but we needed to then take momentum from that turnaround strategy and deliver on a roadmap that National Treasury required in terms of how we were going to implement this particular trading service reform, not just as an entity, but equally as the city of Johannesburg. And then as we move forward, we needed to develop then what they called an A2, a business and investment plan, and that outlined a 10-year plan in terms of how we intend to deliver this particular trading service reform. And then further, we had to develop an A3. Now, an A3 is a performance improvement action plan. It has a number of key performance indicators that are mandatory that we are needing to meet. The first set of those are now required to be met by June 2026, and the minimum access indicators so that we can access the incentive grant associated with this particular program. I'm pleased to say that Council has approved this particular A3 performance improvement action plan at June 2025. So we are on board with the program together with National Treasury. And maybe just to highlight at a very high level, just in terms of where we stand with some of the goals, as the Executive Mayor highlighted, in terms of taking full accountability for our revenue, whilst we envisage taking it over by December, it was actually quite a long journey. One can appreciate the complexity of turning an organization of this size around, especially with labor considerations and logistics of trying to move those numbers of people, not just from Joburg Water, but equally City Power or into Joburg Water and City Power. And I'm pleased to say we were successful in terms of having to conduct this transition as at the 1st of July. So we've been doing this function from a billing perspective since July for the past 3 months effectively. We have been slightly delayed around the collections. There is a strategic decision to hold collections still at the center, at Group Corporate Shared or RSSC effectively within the city, so that the credit control can continue for all 5 services in a consolidated manner, because it makes sense for the city to then control collections of all its services utilizing one instrument as opposed to utilizing multiple instruments, which could become cost inefficient in terms of how we operate. So we're working then on the fair and quantifiable share of the equitable share grant. We received our first equitable share grant after quite some time, and we're working together with the city in closing the gap in terms of the quantum of the equitable share grant as well, to commensurate with the actual expenditure that we are incurring in terms of these free basic services. The multi-year financial agreement, I think that is what's been hotly debated in the media. These are discussions around how we manage sweeping, how we manage relationships with budgets. So those discussions are underway with the city, and we are actually progressing in terms of trying to get to finality around how those relationships will be managed as part of these minimum access conditions that the National Treasury prescribed on the Performance Improvement Action Plan. In increasing our investment and trying to pursue alternatives, what we are looking at is contracts and partnerships with various stakeholders. We're looking at a partnership insofar as our non-revenue water is concerned, trying to get a performance-based contract implemented. We're looking at partnerships with organizations such as Rand Water, such as DBSA, so that they can assist in terms of actually providing the necessary capacity so that we are able to deliver upon this particular program. From a governance perspective, again, it's one of the key tenets around the trading service reform. It's expected that the governance enhancement program that the city has introduced will look at resetting the shareholder compact, look at resetting how board appointments are made or conducted, looking at board terms. So that is well underway currently in terms of the enhancement program. Discussions are at an advanced stage together with the shareholder in terms of having to update that particular arrangement from a governance perspective. In terms of increasing our capital expenditure, so we obviously expected quite a high number in terms of allocation from the city for capital investment, but we do appreciate it's complex. We've moved from 1.2 billion to 1.7 billion, which is quite significant, and we will continue to move aggressively into the future. Already commitments are there for 2 billion in both the periods of the MTREF, in addition to the 1.7 for the current financial year. There's then the 5th goal in terms of having to get our technical capacity augmented, And we're doing this through recruitment or strategic recruitment and placement, as well as then service provider appointments where they have technical capacity, such as OEMs, for example, and as indicated through partnerships with external stakeholders such as the DBSA as well as then Rainwater. So I'm not going to talk too very detailed around this. Safe to say that the executive mayor touched on some of the initiatives and what we're needing capacity on in terms of assistance to deliver. We speak about the reservoirs. There's 22 of these reservoirs that we are needing to deliver upon in terms of rehabilitation. There's 730 PRVs. That number's been revised to 714 since. There's 204 bulk flow meters. We survey approximately 10,000 kilometers of pipe annually of the 12,500 kilometers that we have on the ground. Now that is quite extensive, and you can appreciate the manpower as well as technology that's required to assist in that process. We have water pipe replacement. The executive mayor touched on this as well. We have 85 kilometers for the current year. It's not where we would like to be. We would like to be closer to the 150, 170 kilometers, but it does give us an opportunity to actually generate the next required capacity in terms of having to deliver upon the accelerated or ramped up extent of kilometers that we are requiring. We spoke about the sewer jetting trucks as well through the executive mayor now in terms of the additional trucks that we are procuring, which will then assist in terms of proactive maintenance of our sewer lines. So we don't need to dispatch our teams on a regular basis where our lines are found blocked for whatever reason. We are able to proactively deploy into hotspots these trucks to assist in terms of jetting those blockages. The meter reading we'll touch on. I think the EM's touched on some of the improvements already that we've made there with the meter reading. And similarly, I think we tend to forget we also operate a wastewater treatment environment where we treat lots of the sewer that comes through from the city of Joburg's environment. And we need the appropriate capacity as well as the maintenance programs, as well as then investment into that infrastructure. So that will be coming through in the detailed plan that I'll take you through, as well as then the outcome thereof, which is then your effluent quality from an environmental perspective. So those are the key outcomes that we are trying to achieve with this particular program. I'm going to take you through very quickly in terms of the intervention plan and the status that we're currently at. So as the EM has highlighted, this particular progress report was presented to the portfolio committee about 2 weeks ago. We have updated it in terms of currency of some of the discussions that we had. So basically starting with the governments and institutional causes that we have for water disruptions and having to then discuss the issue of ring fencing with the city. So these have been quite difficult. Conversations have been progressive, but it's requiring multiple stakeholders. It's requiring the presidency, it's requiring National Treasury, the city support program, it's requiring the city and its stakeholders together with the entity to come up with a meeting of the minds in terms of how we actually approach ring fencing without sacrificing the overall city itself in terms of what it needs to deliver upon as a mandate for the Metropolitan Council itself there. So to this end, we've met with the Minister of Finance about a couple of weeks back. There was a commitment given from the various mayors around supporting the Metro Trading Service reforms. In addition, we've also met quite recently at a city budget forum with National Treasury as of Friday to discuss similar considerations around ring fencing, as well as then we've met with the Presidential Joburg Working Group co-chairs meeting on Friday, where we discussed similar conversations with these, if you want to call it, critical components to the turnaround, where key decisions need to be taken around ring fencing. So we are progressing. It may not be at the pace that is desired, but we are progressing because there's a meeting of the minds in terms of some of the activities that are underpinning how we achieve the ring fencing. To that end, there's a ring fencing roadmap that has been developed and is getting support as well as we move through the process. Obviously, through this, the impact of payments on contractors, which I think is what everyone was interested in here to try and understand what was the challenges that Joburg Water was experiencing. So I'll highlight that as well as we move through the slides. Maybe just to touch on the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation. The team had sat then on the 19th of September and responded to various questions from the committee members and members of Parliament. We then had to respond further in writing, at which point a further detailed written follow-up was required. We then had an oversight visit as well from the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, at which point we provided various presentations. which was this one included. But in addition as well, the issue of the sweeping was equally put on the table so that it was understood in terms of how we progress as an organization. Further to that, the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee has resolved that they will be taking matters further up with National Treasury and the AG so that they can get better clarity from those institutions on how we progress as the city of Joburg. So to highlight perhaps where we were standing, we had an outstanding balance of 666 million at the end of September in terms of our liabilities, and that's not too far off. That's about 3-4 weeks ago. And as we sit right now at the 27th of October, we're sitting with 77 million rand that's currently outstanding. So there's significant progress, significant commitment that's being made from the city in its group finance position, group treasury, to actually ensuring that the entity is receiving allocations that are commensurate with the expenditure and the programs that are required to advance the water demand management initiatives, to advance the issues around how we manage the maintenance within the organization, both on water and our wastewater treatment works as well. So that's just a graphical depiction of how that acceleration has happened, and I think in part we've got to thank the executive mayor as well as the stakeholders around the table around the interventions that happened through the middle of the month to get us to this position that we're in. We're obviously looking for that to be sustained as we move forward, but there's growing positivity around how we're managing that particular process. To highlight at a very high level, our capex was out of that 666 million, a total of 120 million was locked in there as a outstanding liability. At this point, only 10% of that amount remains outstanding. So there's been significant progress. It's only sitting at 12.36 million as we're speaking today, and we're hoping to clear this by the end of the month as well. The executive mayor has spoken about the revenue function, so we've taken this over from the 1st of July. Obviously, the transition period is quite difficult. It is quite a complex environment that we've taken over. We've had the required support from the city in its RSSC unit, and I'm pleased to say that the billing is showing signs of improvement, and where we are seeing this improvement is largely in the collection or the reading rate for our meters. I think the EM touched on the marginal improvement from August to September, but I think it's important to highlight, if we look at where we're coming from, in February we're looking at low levels of 83.45% of actual reading, and we are now sitting at 92.16. Now there is a significant improvement that has come through, but this has been part and parcel of the journey that we've been walking through the period from January to June in terms of the takeover, so that we could improve progressively and in parallel with the shift that was coming with the billing unit. What that has translated into is a significant reduction in queries, as the EM has highlighted. So we inherited approximately 9,000 queries. We were sitting with a balance of 4,000 queries at the end of September, and we continue to make progress on this matter given the structure and the setup within the organization to try and now focus on how queries get resolved that are being logged on a continual basis. In addition, the EM touched on the fact that we are launching a key customer management environment so that we can better manage this space completely. What's important to note, as much as the queries appear low, the quantum may appear high when it comes to impact. So every query needs to be dealt with on time, and the intention is for us to get to that stage where we are actually current in terms of managing queries that are being logged. Again, the EM's touched on the issue of our water conservation, water demand management program. There are various initiatives that support what's going into these numbers. We've reduced from 1790 megalitres per day to 1695 megalitres per day on a rolling average across October 2023 to September 2024, and then October 2024 to September 2025. In managing that effectively, we've managed to reduce by 95 megalitres per day. And in doing so, we are targeting to try and get to 100 megalitres per day at least within the current financial year, and to progress beyond so that we can start meeting with our water license conditions that are imposed on us from DWS. So some of the initiatives, as the EM highlighted, issues around PRVs. At this point, we have got 370 of the 714 PRVs that we have rehabilitated and adjusted. Now, these PRVs assist in regulating pressure, flows, and then reducing the impact of leaks on our system. We then partnered with our OEMs because we were struggling in terms of spares, technical capacity to actually address some of the rehabilitation that was required. So we're pleased to announce that our OEMs have come on board as well, and we've appointed them together with their technical specialists for support in this environment in the delivery of the rehabilitation program on the PRVs. We've got the smart controllers that have been installed as well to regulate night pressures. I'm not going to get into that, but we are progressing with that. In terms of our SCM, we are now contracting for a further 78. The noise loggers, we have already commissioned 225, so this was part of the plan, and we've now successfully deployed these noise loggers, and they will assist in minimizing leaks by early detection and also minimizing then losses, because our teams would be able to respond in a faster turnaround period then. The bulk flow meters, we've got 159 of 204 that have now been repaired, and we are continuing where we are expecting all 204 of these bulk flow meters to be repaired by the end of December. The EMs touched on the informal settlements that we're disconnecting. There is challenges in terms of getting support from public order policing. We are actually getting the necessary intervention through the PJWG as well to try and assist us in terms of managing this environment. I think what's important to note is the balance, is that while we are disconnecting the illegal connections on the informal settlements, it's not to indicate that these settlements are not being provided or serviced with water. They are, and in fact we are continuing to augment those supplies as well through initiatives such as the Bowl project, which we'll talk on later as well. In terms of bylaw enforcement, we do have repeated challenges in terms of where we disconnect and we have illegal connections, etc. We are advancing in terms of how to deal with this matter. We've actually met with the NPA to take up approaches that we can conduct as a city so that these items can be treated with the level of impact that is required, or expected impact that is required in terms of reduction of losses. And it's now going to be considered as a crime of theft of the actual water product itself, as per the NPA's advice. I'm not going to speak too much on this. I think the EMs touched on it as well in terms of the reservoir rehabilitation program. It's critical. The first package of 7 reservoirs, we've managed to appoint contractors for 5 of them. The 2 resulted in non-awards through our procurement system. We have actually re-advertised those already, and they are already through evaluation. But on the 5 that have been awarded, they are at various stages of commencement together with the contractors that are on board. Safe to say that we're expecting construction to commence already next month. We also have something called our FSM solution. It's called Field Service Management Solution, and it's coupled with an app for fault logging. Now, the Field Service Management system was seen as a game changer for our organization. What it entailed was actually managing the dispatch as well as management of our teams, so that the actual calls or faults that are logged technically can be attended to in an efficient manner. So this system has been deployed, but as with any system, it comes with challenges in terms of uptake. So we are managing through a transition phase currently, and change management is well underway to ensure that all our teams down to the lowest level are fully conversant with how the system functions, so that we can leverage off the improved performance that can come with the technical efficiency that the system itself will bring to the city of Joburg. If we look, in addition, we've also launched quite recently our mobile app on the My City Smart app. So Joburg Water appears there directly from a technical fault reporting perspective. It allows you to do fault logging quite seamlessly on a drive-by, if you want to call it that. You can quickly do a quick log. It will tag your geolocation and highlight exactly what the problem is based on your inputs, or you can log detailed reports in terms of water bursts, water leaks on properties, etc., no water. All of that can be logged through the app, sewer blockages, etc. So we're pleased on that launch that we've conducted, and we're hoping that that uptake will also result in greater services to the citizens of Johannesburg. So then, as I indicated, plants, so there were several interventions that we highlighted quite early on. I'm pleased to say already 4 are already successful. So at Olifantsvlei, Goudkoppies and Bushkoppies, as well as Northern Works, some of the early low-hanging fruit maintenance programs have been completed. Some of the dates were revised in terms of completion. However, in the main, a number of them have already been achieved. We are battling a bit in terms of our belt presses at the various treatment works. We are battling from a procurement perspective in terms of getting the necessary OEMs to tender or come to the party in terms of having to provide the necessary support. But we are working quite hard behind the scenes to make sure that that happens as well. So those are all the short-term programs. In the medium term, we're obviously looking at having to conduct the full ring fencing. So that will be effective from July next year in terms of how we achieve the A3 and the 8 minimum access conditions, M1 to M8. We then also have to conduct the necessary organizational and capacity review from a design as well as change management perspective. And we are underway with various initiatives that have been taken across from the executive team down to the boots on the ground effectively, so that we get the necessary impact with the intervention plan itself. As we progress, we move in terms of our reservoir smart control program. Now, these smart controls are aimed at opening and closing the reservoirs, and very targeted reservoirs on an automated basis, so that we don't have to do what we call vulavala, sending the team out on a manual basis to open and close valves. This will allow for automation in that particular process. We will continue with commissioning further noise loggers in addition to the short-term items that we've done, and we will continue in terms of our performance-based contract for non-revenue water, where we have a transaction advisor guiding us in terms of how we progress with that particular program. What is critical also is that we have a program to construct a mega store. A mega store is a central store that we will house all our critical materials in, so that we are never short of materials internally at Joburg Water. So the dependency and lead times from service providers can be cut out, that we would have a minimum order of inventory held in the organization to deal with some of the challenges that we face from a leaks and burst perspective. On the 85 kilometers of water pipe that we spoke about, there's quite some detail behind these slides. I'm not going to get into it, but the assurance that was required to be provided was that, are we moving? And when one looks at it on face value, it looks like we aren't, because there's only about 3 to 4 kilometers that are done. But I think what's important is that the pipeline that you see on the right-hand side on the slide talks about how we procure items. And currently we have almost 54% of the targeted kilometers that are already sitting at BEC, which is evaluation stage, awaiting award. We have 15% sitting at award stage, so waiting for the BAC to resolve on it, and then obviously 5% in construction. So a high concentration is already moving through the procurement process and that procurement pipeline. And what is equally important is that we are not targeting the 85. We are targeting more than 85 from a procurement perspective, and we'll manage the construction program accordingly, so that we still fit within the budget that was allocated for the current year. This is just some detail. I'm not going to go through it, but it talks about the various regions, various suburbs, how we targeted these areas. These are the hotspot areas that we are dealing with in terms of constant bursts or leaks. And these hotspot areas, as opposed to doing point repairs or replacement of a specific line only, we are actually targeting the suburb. So that is how this program has come about in terms of pipe replacement. So we then move on in the medium term. I think the EMs touched on this as well in terms of our phase 1 package 2 on the reservoir rehabilitation program. Again, we are trying to get in advance of the program because procurement does take time, and we are on track for awards by late November this year already. So the market has been approached. We understand how we want to deal with these particular reservoirs, and we are hoping to make awards by the end of November, so construction can then commence early January or late February as well. Around the sewer, effectively, it's much the same as water. I'm not going to get into the detail. It's the same concept. The jetting trucks I've spoken about at a high level, trying to assist in terms of our proactive maintenance around the sewer pipelines and the maintenance thereof. And then as we get into the bulk wastewater treatment works, you'll see that there's quite a number of programs across the various treatment works that involve both mechanical and electrical work, and across all the treatment plants that we are dealing with. They're all at various phases in terms of completion. We are obviously still struggling around the bell presses, as I've highlighted, and this equally applies for the medium term. We tried to bring in a tender, which ended up being a non-award, so that is being reinitiated as well, and we're hoping we can get successful at the next attempt in terms of getting these bell presses on board. Some of the construction initiatives that we had targeted have come to completion in the treatment plant space. So Ennerdale Wastewater Treatment Works as well as Northern Wastewater Treatment Works. Some of the electromechanical upgrades that were required to be conducted through our CapEx program, those have been commissioned already. In the Northern Works, we've got a 90% completion rate around the civil activity that needed to be conducted. The mechanical and electrical will follow in the next phase. And we have other initiatives that are continuing as well. I think Lanseria is quite topical as well, so perhaps just to touch on Lanseria, we have a BFI application that's in the process and that we will be advancing together with the transaction advisor. Some of the other elements I think we've spoken about around the Brixton Reservoir and other infrastructure, it's in the presentation that will be shared. Safe to say these plans are currently underway and we are working in terms of closely collaborating with developers for delivery of developer-funded assets of this nature as well. There's various pipelines that are in the process of being delivered as well, and they are at various stages of procurement. So I'm not going to touch into all of that. And then as we move into the long term, we look at smart controllers that will continue to be deployed. That is package 2. Those are now 20 smart controllers that will be added to the first 8. We then have, for the current financial year, almost 3,500 kilometers that have been surveyed, which we found a number of deficiencies which were needing to be treated in terms of leaking meters, bursts, leaking valves, etc. We then have the reservoir rehabilitation program. This is now package 3, so that will happen in the long term. Those are targeting specific reservoirs such as Lenasia, Marlborough, Heldercrane, etc. We then have some of the additional towers. We have some of the additional reservoirs. I'm not going to spend too much time on them. We then have further procurement around the wastewater treatment works, as well as then further pipe replacements in the long term. And then we're looking at introducing a shift system to address this. I think lastly, if I look, the bowl project that we spoke about, we are actually drilling bowls and we've successfully drilled in a number of informal settlements. So maybe just to highlight and stop at that point. I think that's the presentation from Joburg Water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. Without wasting any time, I'll hand over to Charity Murai from the city's group treasury to do a presentation on the spinner cost.
Charity, you must come so that the mics can hear you. It's on the sweeping account. So let me wait for it.
Perhaps can we take the technical presentation from Joburg Water?
No, it's done.
No, yours is done. Let's get Charity on the money. We want to know the 4 billion. So connected. So from Charity doesn't because Lama mic.
Yeah, but they're going to move us in an emotion.
Hey, I need to let the topic Charity. Charity,
Yes,
sit here.
I'm just saving the presentation.
Bringing the presentation to this machine.
Oh, this
She doesn't have
machine
a
is.
connection.
Oh, yours is the old machine.
You can ask for those old connections.
It does have it.
Charity is on the new ones. iPhone 16 and 17.
Should I take this out so she can put on my mistake?
No, I've got it.
Yes.
Good afternoon. So I'm just going to give a brief presentation on the sweeping arrangements that have been very topical. So the institutional arrangements that the City of Joburg operates under for its 13 entities and 15 core departments are underpinned by the Igoli 2002 delivery model and philosophy. So we went through quite an extensive process in the early 2000s once the city had been amalgamated into one local municipality, amalgamating the Westbury local municipality, Midrand, all of them became one. We set up the municipal-owned entities, and in terms of that structure, that's how we've been operating for the last 20-odd years. Under that arrangement, the city procures a banker centrally. So I think if you follow our reports to council, we recently appointed a new central banker for the city. And in that arrangement, bank accounts are opened by our group treasury, who run overall treasury functions for the city, similar to how you will have treasury functions that operate within public listed companies where they run a centralized treasury function. We also have a group treasury within the city. And in terms of that arrangement, the bank accounts and all the administrative work associated with that are signed off by the accounting office of the city, who is the city manager, as prescribed by the MFMA. In terms of those bank accounts that are opened under the central banking arrangement, all the bank accounts fall under the COJ umbrella. So all of the accounts, when they are opened as COJ City Power, COJ Joburg Water, and so on, denoting that these are City of Joburg accounts. However, all of these accounts are linked to the city's overall profile with a single primary bank account as prescribed by the MFMA. So the MFMA requires that the city has a primary bank account through which we then receive grants and funding such as that when we get such funding from National Treasury. And therefore all of the accounts that are under the umbrella of COJ, they are linked to the primary bank account. Our group treasury is responsible for the management of all of these accounts. They hold the super user role, meaning that they decide who has access to the accounts for each one of the entities. They do password resets, user verification. When we need to do the FICA requirements, it's all handled centrally by our group treasury. And group treasury has viewing rights for all of the accounts from the perspective of having oversight over all of these accounts, as well as to manage the cash flow overall for the city, because also prescribed in the MFMA is that the accounting office and the CFO of the city have got a responsibility of managing the overall cash of the city and staying within the prescribed positive cash balances that are required by law. So at Group Treasury, we manage the overall liquidity and ensure that the primary bank account does not get overdrawn, because there are then consequences in law if the account gets overdrawn. This slide is a graphical representation of the sweeping arrangement that has been talked about quite a lot, just to kind of break down the processes. So as a customer, you will receive your statement from the city that says, this is how much we have billed you for what you have consumed for water, electricity, for your refuse removal, as well as for your property rates. On your bill, there will be an indication of the city's revenue account that you then make your payment into, whether you're paying cash or via EasyPay. That revenue account is linked to the primary account, just as all of the other COJ accounts that I mentioned earlier. Once that cash is received for your payment, we have an internal payment allocation process that then allocates a share of what you will have paid against your City Power account, against your Joburg Water account, and against your Pick It Up account. So there will be a physical flow of cash from the city's primary bank account to those individual bank accounts of each one of those entities. So if on your bill you paid 2,000 towards your City Power account, 2,000 of that will then get allocated to City Power. However, at the end of each day, and again, this is a process that is not unique to the City of Joburg, it does also happen in treasury functions, even in the private sector, there is a sweeping that then happens to sweep those balances that are in the individual sweeping balances of the entities back into the primary account. And I think this is where the core of the questions then lie, to say what then is the sweeping that we are talking about, and how does the sweeping work? So the sweeping is an automated process. So none of us put our fingers into the process. It happens automatically, where funds are transferred from each of the individual entity sweeping accounts into the city's primary bank account at the end of each day. And this is to optimize cash management. Like I mentioned, the MFMA requires that the accounting officer and the CFO manage the city's cash flow, and therefore we optimize that by managing it centrally through sweeping the balances to the primary bank account. When we've swept these balances to the primary account, it also enables us to be able to maximize returns when we invest excess funds. So we are not then leaving each of the entities to invest any of the excess funds they have on their own. There are counterparties that are agreed on centrally in central treasury, where we've done all the checks to ensure that we're investing in institutions that are approved in terms of the investment regulations from National Treasury. So we are able to then place any excess funds for investment for 30 days, 60 days, whatever the period is that, you know, we have excess funds that we're able to then place and earn interest. The sweeping also ensures that we are managing the primary bank account, both negative and positive sweeping balances from the entities sweep into the core. So it does happen that some entities will have negative sweeping balances, others will have positive sweeping balances, but because they all sweep into the primary bank account and we ensure the primary account remains positive, then we're managing the risk overall for the city, and we're able to then do what is called cross-subsidization, where those that are in negative are cross-subsidized by those that are in positive. And I think even if we go back to the white paper on local government, there was an assumption that there would be cross-subsidization across the different functions in local government, that your electricity and water businesses were intended to be cash cows that would cross-subsidize those functions that would not in and of themselves be able to generate positive cash balances. And once the balances have swept into the central primary bank account, they do sweep back the next day. So this is just to debunk the notion that says the 4 billion that swept from Joburg Water disappeared and it never went back. It's in a sweeping statement where you are able to trace how much is left in that bank account on a daily basis. We're able to see what were the net inflows and outflows related specifically to the sweeping balance for each one of our municipal entities. So it's not as though we don't know where the 4 billion that was on the financial statements for Joburg Water as of 30 June, where that's gone. So it was 4 billion as of 30 June. It was 4 billion on the 1st of July. And as at the end of July, it was about 3.7 billion. I think the latest statement at the end of September, we were sitting at about 3.4 billion. So the 4 billion has not disappeared. It is there accounted for as part of the sweeping account for Joburg Water, and inflows and outflows related to Joburg Water can then be seen through the sweeping account. The next thing is just to reflect on what are the advantages and operational benefits of the sweeping arrangement. As I mentioned, it enables us to then put investments and get more competitive yields for larger balances, because then we're agglomerating all of the city's balances. It reduces banking costs because then there's lower transaction fees. We're dealing with economies of scale, and then it optimizes our liquidity management, allowing us to view our cash positions, and if should the need arise for us to then borrow short term to manage any cash flow mismatches that arise from time to time, we do that centrally, taking away, you know, the need for anyone to do that individually at an entity level, and therefore we're also able to secure competitive rates. It also allows us to reduce entity risk exposure. There's a risk that if entities were allowed to invest funds on their own, they might end up investing in inappropriate investments. We did see a few years ago some municipalities ended up investing in VBS, which was not permitted within the investment regulations for local government. So if this is done centrally at Group Treasury, the colleagues at Group Treasury are well aware of what the requirements of the law are. We are also able to consistently apply our investment policies within set guidelines and parameters. We reduce fraud risk. by ensuring that we are managing these functions centrally. There's administrative efficiency. It reduces entity-level treasury management. Currently, we have one central treasury function. If entities were then dealing with these treasury functions, we would be duplicating roles. I did say we've got 13 entities, so it would mean you have 13 treasury functions across the 13 entities. However, currently it allows us to do those treasury functions centrally. We're able to use uniform cash management approaches across the entities, as well as consolidate our cash position reporting and ensure that we report appropriately to all our oversight bodies. I did touch on this earlier to say the 4 billion that has been mentioned. There's an extract of the draft financial statements for Joburg Water that were submitted to the Auditor General on the 31st of August, and it shows the 4 billion. The comparative number in the previous financial year was 2.8 billion, so there has been improvement in the sweeping balance for the entities from the previous financial year. But as I mentioned, that balance has obviously been utilized as the current year has progressed, and we're currently at about 3.4 billion at the end of September in terms of the balance. I think the final point that I wanted to reflect on is the whole notion of ring fencing the Joburg Water cash. In some circles, they talk about ring fencing the Joburg Water revenue. It's part of a broader discussion that we are undertaking with National Treasury. There are reforms that are currently being implemented by National Treasury for the trading services. At the moment, we've taken strategies for approval by Council for Joburg Water and City Power. We are taking the strategy for Pick It Up in the next few months. And the three entities are part of the trading services reform process. And ring fencing is one of the requirements of the trading services reform. And so therefore we can't look at it in isolation and say, let's just deal with Joburg Water alone. We need to look at it holistically for the city, as well as in the context of the rest of the city's operation. I did mention that there was a cross-subsidization assumption within the way that local government was established. So there would be an impact on the entire city and its operations in us relooking at the ring fencing in particular. And one of the principles of the trading services reforms is that we need to have a single point of management accountability, that at the level of Joburg Water, they need to be able to account for their business end to end, and within that broader context of governance processes, financial reporting, transparency in our financial reporting, we're looking at ring fencing holistically, and therefore we shouldn't be rushed in looking at this one aspect of sweeping and delineate it from the broader process that we're undertaking in terms of the trading services reforms. That's the end of the presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Charity. I'm going to open the floor for questions. You can just introduce yourself and the media house you are from and to whom your question is addressed to. Start there.
Some kind of indication of what's happening there. I know of 2 factories that are closed. That's 45 family members who've lost their jobs. Most of them are women. So it's quite concerning. So 4 billion sweeping, apologies, Charity, which is now changed to a different sum. Has that money been used for Johannesburg Water, or is it being used to sustain other entities? And then if you just indulge me, a colleague from Netvac was not able to come. So I believe this one is for the mayor. So this is from Netvac. The president indicated earlier this year that he was appalled at the state of the city. Has he communicated that he is satisfied with the state of the city in line for the chief rate? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Nabila from ENSA. I'm doing a bit of focus today on water leaks. We visited a church in Randburg this morning that's been dealing with a water leak for the past 5 years. So it's millions and millions of liters of water being lost at that church ground. They've shown us a paper trail and proof of making repeated attempts to get this leak sorted out for 5 years. The reverend that was formerly at the church even died trying to solve this issue because he repeatedly tried to get Joburg Water involved, and the hole was open in April, it was left that way, and they never came back to fix it. So on the issue of water leaks, I think the most recent report from the Gauteng Water Board said that there's approximately a backlog of about 5,000 in terms of repairing water leaks. What is the city's current backlog in terms of repairing water leaks? And secondly, how much? The last figures we previously were told is between 26% to 30% of the city's water is lost to water leaks. Can we just confirm an estimate of what that figure is? And then, yes, just a general sense of what is really being done to deal and to fast track the process of sorting out water leaks in and around the city. And then the next question is about water tankers. We know we've been seeing all this drama with the city of Tshwane. So on our side, are you able to provide us figures as to how much it's actually costing the city to supply water tankers?
Okay. There's no other end. Zanalia.
Silver Sevilla from UFM. To the mayor, you mentioned that 85 kilometers of old water pipe will be replaced in the next financial year. When do you expect this to be concluded, and how much can this cost the city?
I've taken a job.
So we've got Joburg residents who are preparing to have a peaceful march at the end of this week. I'd like to ask about, firstly, the progress with water supply to Mayfair. What is the status of that? And secondly, will you be attending the march? And if not, what would you like to say to the residents who are preparing to march?
Okay.
It's Michelle from also a newspaper.
Michelle.
Yes. I just wanted to find out, Mr. Mayor, I didn't hear you mention anything about water cards starting on the 14th of November. I see that the Minister of Water and Sanitation was speaking to some radio saying that there will be some water cards implemented as of the 14th of November to try and deal with the water issues within the city. Can you just take us into confidence what that is about and how long it's to last?
Kaya. Okay. Let me start with the easier one. I will be receiving a memorandum from, I think it's Joburg Alliance and all other civil society. They've requested to have that engagement on the 1st of November. I think it's this Saturday. So we'll be meeting them this Saturday. I think Watercan is part of them, so Outer, and then we'll give them this progress report of where we are. I wanted the easier ones. I guess the rest are technical about how we are going, but the one on the church, it's a point of concern. You can't have a leak for 5 years. So the CEO, as we live here, the COO, as we live here, she will take the details of the church, dispatch the team, and give you feedback, and the pastor at the church the feedback, because it has to be closed before tomorrow. By this time, it must be closed. Otherwise, we'll have a problem. And you have a pocket of that where you find that water has been running for months and months unreported. At times reported, but our teams are not responding in the manner in which they have to respond. Silver, we are doing 84 kilometers. We said in this financial year, yes. And then in the next financial year, we'll then give you a figure for another stretch that we need to do. Would have loved to do this thing at once, but the resources don't allow. I've also asked Joburg Water to relook into the CBD. It's about 150 kilometers. And I wanted them to prioritize, as you see that we're engaged in the project to reclaim the inner city. But they will look at what priorities, which areas we can do probably 4 or so. They have already asked for De Villa Street, Plain, Wanderers, so that as we reclaim the precinct, we fix the infrastructure. So hopefully the team will then give me a proper plan. They're busy with the plan, they will give it to me. Because I wanted De Villa's Plain to be beautiful before Christmas. Because you can't beautify it because your water pipes and sewer pipes are still steel pipes and they burst. So we need to sort out that problem first. Water tankers, we have procured, now we're at what? We're at 20.
We are procuring another 20.
We have 20 that we are using ourselves. So what we do on a 3-year cycle, we then give a tender to say this will be the supply of water as and when. And then we cost it based on a previous baseline, and we say, okay, in the next 3 years again, we can budget it at about 200 and something, so that is for a 3-year period. So that's how we deal with it. It's something that we budget and we use it as and when. And sometimes it has a rollover if you have not used the budget for tankers. Now you'd see that it is now going to reduce the cost of contractors, because now the cost will be internally, as we have reduced with 20 tankers, and we'll be buying another 20, so that we reduce the cost of using private tankers. Nabila, we are repairing the water leaks. You'd see that we have indicated that we have also deployed leak detectors in our pipes, so that we can get an early warning for us to be able to resolve the problem. But the bigger project is a complete replacement. As you'd know, that part of the pipes are either asbestos, which is very difficult to replace, to patch once it bursts, and we also have what we call steel pipes in the main. It's here where we are, which there's an English word, I forget. No, there's another word that technicians use.
Corroded.
Corroded. Kyonan. So, yeah, it's not my first language. Where's with me? I'm part of the Bantu education, so don't worry. So we need to then replace the entire pipe system. So we are detecting the leaks, we are responding. You'll see in the speech we also said we are reducing our turnaround time, I think from 48 hours to 24 hours. So that with that turnaround time, it means we have increased the teams, we can respond much, much better and quicker to the leaks that we see. And then the rest, it's on the sweeping account, which I think...
Another one on the state of the city since the president's visit.
Oh, the visit of the president, was it Alex?
Yeah.
My colleagues.
Oh, okay. The president came and requested us to deal with specific issues. If you drive on the M1, you'd see that we are responding to the specific issues as raised. There was one issue around street lights between ourselves, Province and Midrand, and Eskom, which is an Eskom street lights. So I'm told that between Province and Eskom, they've entered into an agreement to sort out those. I think they're just between Colette and Woodmead. You'd see if you drive that night, they're not visible. So they've entered into an agreement, they will sort out. You'll see Joburg City Parks teams every day there. You'll see JRA teams every day sorting out the rail cards, and everything that needs to be sorted in that area. To prepare not only for the G20 but to start responding. You'll appreciate that we passed the budget in May and we took a decision that in 1st of July we're going out to spend based on our 3 priorities: service delivery, bylaw enforcement and crime prevention, and the 3rd one being financial sustainability, which included increasing our collection rate, increasing our rating agencies' outlook. All those issues are being addressed, and we are beginning to see results on the commitments that we have made. So the president hasn't come to me, but there's a team that sits every Tuesday. The team is the provincial team, is the city's team, which is not only Joburg, it's Cllr, Ntshavheni, and all other municipalities in Gauteng, and the national team, and we are reporting on the key issues that needs to be addressed so that when our visitors descend, they should descend and the place is proper also. The same way we want it to be proper for all the residents of Johannesburg. So we are on the right track about the G20. And I thought you'll ask me about what we're doing in the inner city. We're working very hard. We're changing the inner city.
I don't need to ask because I've seen it.
Oh, you are happy. Thank you. So we are tomorrow we're going to court on the inner city issue, but we'll be there in the court. So charity and the technical ones, the COO will deal with. I think the areas of Coronation, Westbury, water has been restored. They are now receiving constant water in Coronation and Westbury. So we think the intervention, if you remember, we said we'll also be doing an intervention through a cross connection in Crosby pipeline so that they can have water. It has now showed to be successful and they've got water. But it's an intervention. As part of these plans that we're unveiling today, there's a bigger plan to ensure that the reservoir that will be opening soon, it will then help us to ease the pressure in that area. I think I've answered what I can. Charity will deal with the money issue and the CEO will deal with the rest of the technical issues.
Yeah,
She will
it's
deal with
also
Selby.
Okay, just on the issue about the money. So when I mentioned that the balance in the Joburg water sweeping account is now at 3.4, that movement from the 4 billion to 3.4 purely represents transactions that are specific to Joburg water. So it would be the net of any receipts we've got from customers over that period in time against any outflows, whether it's payment for salaries for Joburg water, whether it's payment for suppliers within Joburg water. However, because I said we operate on a cross-subsidization model, when we look at the overall city balance in the primary bank account, there is some level of cross-subsidization to say, when we look at the overall city, who maybe has a negative balance that we need to then cover, but the transactions that go through the sweeping account for Joburg water are specific to Joburg water.
Okay.
Okay.
COO.
No, thanks, EM, and good afternoon to the media houses as well as colleagues here. So let me just start with just indicating in terms of where our system is currently sitting overall. Our system is stable at the moment, but in the changes of the weather, we are noting that there is an increase in the demand, which then results in the drop of of the levels in most of our water systems, which then requires the continuous throttling that takes place so that we can monitor and ensure that the systems are performing accordingly. So with regards to the commando system, the mayor has indicated that that system is quite stable at the moment, but we are continuing throttling the Brixton and Hestill at about from 8 o'clock in the evening to 3 o'clock in the morning to allow the system to recover, as I've indicated that we need the systems to recover in order for us to have the continuous water supply. Now, if I just touch on the Selby water supply issue, but before the Selby, if I can just indicate that, as per the Mayor has indicated, the church in Randburg, the issue of the 5 years it should not be the case. Our turnaround for responding to leaks is 48 hours, so I will, outside of this platform, then take the address and ensure that the team goes out to attend to that issue. The Selby issue, the Selby is supplied from Hector Norris Booster Pump Station. The pump station has been part of the rehabilitation program that we are undergoing, and we experienced some glitches when we were trying to commission the pump station, and we noted that there's a pipe burst around the areas. So the team then went around to investigate what the issue, what the pipe bursts were around, and we noticed that there's 6 pipe bursts that they needed to attend to. And the 2 new pumps at the Hector Norris pump station were commissioned, and we started pumping to ensure that there's increase in flow rate. However, then in relation to the leaks, after we have resolved those leaks, we then noted that some of the areas in Selby were receiving water, but this particular church, particular factory that you are noting, I will have to get the team to then investigate. So I'll take the address after this so that we can get the investigation, and I'll come back to you, because some of the areas in Selby, I'm aware that they are already receiving water and water has been restored.
Yeah, it's not apologies, it's not what I've heard, and I've spoken to about 10 today. So they say they haven't had water all week. They got a little bit last week, and it's now completely, well, I know it's Monday, but they haven't had water for a week again. Yeah.
We'll have to investigate that. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Covered.
Yeah.
Any follow-up questions?
All right.
Sorry, one more. So on the pipe replacement issue, I think you said it was going to be 85 kilometers of pipe this year. Where do we currently stand with that at the moment? How many kilometers have we completed?
Okay, so I can take that.
I'll take it, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks. So I think we highlighted it in the presentation. There's about 3 kilometers that are done. But I highlighted a pipeline of, forget the pun, pipeline of procurement that we are undertaking. So there's quite a large concentration that was sitting at our evaluation and award stage, so that we can start commencing with construction. But we believe as we move through the procurement, because our panel of providers were appointed, and we're now allocating the work packages through that. So we're expecting that that should ramp up within the next few weeks already.
Thank you. Any follow-ups? Thank you so much, colleagues from the media. Thank you. There's lunch that is not releasable due to all of us, so we can just stick around for that lunch. It's definitely for all of us. Thank you.
You.